Hello class. How are we today? Good. Today we're going to go through leadership, the beginning of understanding leadership, the basics of leadership, and I'm going to try and accomplish a few things. The first is to answer the basics or the fundamental questions about leadership. And leadership has many, many fundamental questions. Can anybody be a leader? That's one of them. Are leaders special people? What do leaders do? Are leaders born? Are they made? Do you have to be a certain height, a certain size, or sometimes even a certain color to be a good leader? And these are all fundamental questions that you may actually think you know the answer to, but I have to tell you, not everyone agrees with you. Different people have different understandings of what the answers to these questions are. The answers I'm going to provide you are mostly borne out by research. In other words, research has proven this to be the case. And so this is the current state of knowledge about leadership that we have. Before I start, I would like to go around the tables and have each one introduce yourselves, just the name and the country where you're from. We want to give a flavor that we have a multinational West African group with us today. So we'll start with Dr. Chidi here.
I'm Dr. Ugochukwu Chidebere from Nigeria.
I'm Abiola Imus from Nigeria.
I'm Emmanuel Agbinosi from Togo.
I'm Zainab Sweet from Nigeria.
I'm Eunice Mintayang from Ghana.
I am Noble Kofi Naza from Ghana.
I am Beata from Liberia.
And I'm Bien Flomo Piwi from Liberia.
And my name is Hadi Jonga from the Gambia.
I am Josephine Kamara from Sierra Leone.
I'm Beatrice Wandahi from Ghana.
I'm Christian Cedric Towe from Burkina Faso.
My name is Amina Abdelaziz. I'm from Nigeria.
I am Chemeka Sydney Rebu. I'm from Nigeria.
I am Asibiti Zazma Kombo from Ghana.
I am Oraboeze Ibuchukwu from Nigeria.
I'm François Amondabi from Côte d'Ivoire.
Okay, after we've been through this course, you should be able to explain the fundamental questions about leadership. And as I mentioned earlier, there are quite a few. I want you to also be able to, at the end of this, assess your own leadership abilities and skills. You also need, or you will gain, an understanding of what are considered effective leadership behaviors when leading others. Why do we need to know ourselves as leaders? Why do we need to have a self-awareness as leaders? Can somebody help me? Yes.
We need to know ourselves so that we need to know our strengths.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly right. What she said was we need to know ourselves so we know our strengths and our weaknesses. And the reason why we need to know our strengths is so we know what we already are good at doing and our weaknesses, areas where we need to improve. Self-knowledge is the beginning of becoming an effective leader. A leader who does not know themselves cannot be a good leader. They'll be making mistakes all over the place. Effective leaders, again, know themselves well, they know their abilities, and they practice them constantly so you can get better. They also know their limitations and weaknesses, and they engage in continuous self-improvement, and also they engage others who balance their weaknesses. So for instance, if you're not a good person to delegate, some leaders naturally find it difficult to delegate. So a good leader, knowing that about themselves, will engage someone else to work with them in that department. So they may say, can you go and spread this word out within the group? Or can you go to the group and get this person or that person to do this work, right? There's a skill to delegation. It's not simply just giving the work out, but it's giving the work out and following through. And some leaders are just not very good at that. So that's a weakness that some may identify. And in fact, if you guys are already leaders, which I know some of you to be, you may have identified that about yourselves. Why is continuous self-improvement necessary for effective leaders? To build up again on areas of weaknesses. Why would any leader who wants to be effective want to stay weak in an area that they've identified that they're already weak? It almost doesn't make sense, does it? Let us examine some of these negative behaviors that come from leaders who do not know their weaknesses. Leaders who do not know their weaknesses or try to mask their weaknesses very often exhibit negative behaviors. And so I'm going to ask you to tell me some of these. I'm sure you've experienced leaders like that where you work. I've already got some indicators in there, but you can add to it or we can discuss, right? What's in there are examples of what I got from some previous classes. So the first one is uncontrolled bias and stereotyping. This was a behavior that some students said they saw in their leaders as a bad behavior. And what's the weakness that can cause that? Exactly. Bias or discrimination of any kind usually is a result of ignorance. As people learn, as they become more enlightened, they are less likely to be biased or discriminate against any one group. So when this happens in a group, the group actually suffers discrimination because the leader is biased, the leader is ignorant, and have done nothing about fixing it. In a group such as that, if you were managing, let's say, your own company, and you have that in there, you were the leader, assume that you were biased against people because they were either men or women, black, white, tall, short, whatever. If you were exhibiting this kind of discrimination in your group, what do you think will happen to the group in the long term? The group performance will drop. And you said the group would crumble. That's the extreme case, but it's possible, right? Remember, if you have an organization, a company doing something, the reason why you're doing it is you either want to make a profit or maybe help society. So you have a goal. And to achieve that goal, the group has to work effectively. To work effectively, the group has to be led also effectively. Are we clear? And effective leadership includes getting rid of biases that do not help the organization grow. Another one is a leader who does not delegate. This was given to me by an earlier class. When you have this kind of a leader, what happens, what kind of weakness causes that? A lack of delegation. Yes. This is a big weakness for many leaders, right? I have to continuously watch myself from falling into that trap. Because you think, I'm the best person that can do it. I need it done like today. So I'm just going to do it myself. Because if I give it to you to do, I need to monitor you, I need to tell you what it is, and there may be something maybe a bit confidential in there, which I don't want you to know. But as a leader, you quickly become overloaded if you live this way. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to say that it is usually also as a result of lack of trust in the people that work with the
Exactly. You're very right. But again, when that is the case, a lack of trust in their abilities, what does a good leader do? And he coaches them. He sends them on courses. So for instance, when you do a performance appraisal at the end of the year or mid-year or quarterly, that is an issue a good leader will identify on the performance appraisal and said, you know what, I cannot do all the work in this group. I need others to help me, but my people, I don't have confidence in their abilities. So what do I do as a good leader? You train them to the point where your confidence level increases to an acceptable level. Yes, question?
Sure. So in the absence of funders, it's not for this leader to carry out these trainings.
Yeah.
What if he's faced with the challenge of funders?
Yes. Now, believe it or not, almost every organization has financial constraints, even profitable organizations. So this is something that effective leaders learn to live with. For instance, one of the ways I've seen companies do it is you train one individual that you trust, and then get that individual to train within the group. You don't need to send every employee to Movenpick Hotel in Ghana or Protea Hotel in South Africa to be trained. That's expensive. So you find ways of making it happen. Yes.
I have another contribution. When I noticed that most leaders, what they also do is they bring the facilitator to the organization.
Yes.
So everybody gets to learn from that one.
Yes, yes. I think that the choice I use would be the least expensive when you train one person, come back and train other people. This is another option. You see, as a leader, you have to be continuously thinking. What is the best for my organization? We have goals to accomplish, right? When we talk about leadership, a leader is leading people to a goal. And the leader's decisions dictate the path that we take to get to the goal. There'll always be obstacles. And if it's not financial constraints, it will be something else, right? If it's financial constraints, usually it's very clearly defined. And this is when organizations may go and borrow money or something. And I would say a lot of times that's probably an easier decision to diagnose and possibly deal with if the organization is viable, because you can always borrow, right? But the leader's primary role, remember this, is to get the organization from point A to point B, which is the agreed upon destination of the organization in a given period. Maybe the first quarter, second quarter, 5 years, maybe in a strategic plan. But good organizations always have goals with, of course, time limits. And the leader's function is to get a group from that point where they are today to that point at a given time. The other one is dictatorship, right? What kind of a weakness in a leader causes that? Exactly. If you're a leader, you have that. What do you guys think? Pardon me? Yes. We're going to do an exercise later, and this will come up, but I think this is a good time for me to point out, if you're a leader and you have a lack of self-confidence, you have a major problem as a leader. Because leaders, their bread and butter, their key currency is confidence. And of course, there's also integrity. Anyway, confidence. As a leader, you must have that. If you have that and you're a dictator, they always fail. Have you noticed that? They always fail because they come across somebody who's sort of maybe stronger than them. Dictatorships are based on strength, using force. Ultimately, somebody else comes along that overpowers that dictator. So when you have a dictator in a group, we call it autocratic leadership a lot of times. What happens to the group? Lack of initiative. And when you have lack of initiative, what does it lead to? Yes, that's the most obvious one. But there's also a lack of innovation. Companies survive long-term through innovation, and organizations long-term through innovation. When you have that, the company is constrained. Nothing new comes in. The company does things the same way they did like 5 years ago. So it's only a matter of time that another organization comes and passes this organization because they're more innovative. So, do you guys know what your weaknesses are? Pardon me? Yeah, you should try and know them all. Test yourselves. Sometimes you have to go outside your comfort limits. Test yourselves to know where your weaknesses are. For some people, again, it's pretty obvious. They're not very good public speakers. That's curable. That's curable. You can practice. You can actually get a coach and learn how to be a good public speaker. Some of them, they don't have good interpersonal relationships. Again, you can be coached out of that, right? But as a leader, you must know and work on them. Leaders have certain skills and attributes, which we're going to be looking at. If you don't have those and you're not working on them, you're not going to be a leader for long, or at least an effective leader. So you need to work on those. The first step to solving any problem is knowing or admitting that there is a problem. If you don't admit that you're not a very good public speaker, would you really go and ask somebody to coach you? And even as they coach you, you'll be saying, yeah, I know it already. tell me something new, right? Even though it may be true and it's something you need, you may actually be bluffing yourself, thinking you're okay and not learning. So you have to know it and admit it, that this is a weakness I need to work on. Sometimes leaders are pressed into action before they are ready, right? So you work in an office, you're a manager, suddenly your director decides to quit or leaves for one reason or the other. You're suddenly made director. You're pressed into action likely before you're ready, right? The smart ones, what do? They work hard to develop quickly. Incidentally, this happens a lot with our chiefs in the villages. I don't know about the system in Nigeria, but in Ghana, when a chief dies, in their Kan tradition anyway, normally the nephew inherits the chief. And some of these nephews, maybe as young as like 17, 18, 19, 20, they haven't really seen life. But once you're a chief, you have to behave like a chief. Chiefs traditionally are expected to be wise men, right? So if a 60-year-old or 70-year-old has a case, they go to the chief for judgment and guidance. So you can see that disparity. So you have to grow quick and learn. In practice, what a lot of them do is they get elderly advisors. Right? So the case will come, they will listen, then they'll go back into chambers and ask the more experienced people, what's really going on here? What should I do? Can I get your input? And they'll come out and project the chiefly tradition of making decisions. That's a leader that's trying to learn quick. The stupid leader will say, well, I'm only 19, but I'm the chief, so I should know. And I will tell you what the problem is. And probably be some left field answer that doesn't even apply. You don't gain respect that way as a leader. Again, as I said, the bad ones, like this last example I gave, attempt to bully their way through. I'm 20, but I'm the chief, so I'm going to be a chief. Now give you the decisions. Okay, we're going to do a short exercise for those of you at home taking this course, and also those here in class. We're going to talk about fundamental questions about leadership. I think I mentioned some of it to you already. I want you to pick 3 of your favorite leaders, right? So take a pencil, take some time out, put the course on hold, and write your 3 favorite leaders. Who are they? 1, 2, 3. And for each one of these leaders, identify what traits, skills, and attributes that you like about them. You can actually forget this. I only put it there to clarify what I mean by what. Do you understand me? So you could actually say for each one of these leaders, identify the things that you like about them. I haven't told you what traits, skills, and attributes are, so don't worry about it. Just put down the things that you like about them. Put as many as you can. Okay, I think you probably have enough now. Okay, for the skills, traits, and attributes you've put down, I want you to underline or circle the ones that you believe you can learn if you wanted to. Circle or underline all the ones that you believe can be learned. If anything new comes to your mind about what you like about your favorite leaders, add it and circle it or underline it if it's applicable. Okay, let's go around the room and listen to a few of the things that you liked about your favorite leaders. I'll get 2 from this table, 2 from that table, and 2 from this table. Table 1. Give me 2, just shout them out.
He's very optimistic. In every situation, it's positive. No matter what is going on, he's on point. As in, he knows he's always very positive. Let me put it that way. And he's very supportive. If he sees that you, for instance, me coming in
Very good. I'll talk about something later when you manage people. It's called the relationship orientation. And that comes into play. It seems to me he knows what he's doing by supporting you, as long as you don't go overboard in that way. Yeah. One more from this table.
Courageous. Things about legacy in the next generation.
Very good.
And these are things that I believe that if any leader possesses, they are going to move their generation or their society or company from one stage to another.
That's very good. Yes, next table.
I chose my mentor as an institution, empowering social visionaries. So she really gives time to what she does. She's on top of every information.
Right. So she's a visionary.
Yes.
Okay. And she knows how to run social enterprises.
She has this institution that is training or empowering social visionaries.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And she's a good trainer, good teacher.
Yes, she's a good trainer.
Okay. So again, we call that technical competence. She has high technical skills. Now getting to how that becomes important later on. One more from that table.
Chose by the executive chairperson of the Environment Protection Agency in Sierra Leone, Madam Adija Tujalo. She's a mentor and my boss also. One of the reasons why I chose her is the ability for her to think and solve complex problems. She's a very smart woman. She's self-confident, and she is selfless.
Right.
Like the way she put the issues of the environment at the top of our agenda is really something I really admire. She's passionate about the environment and about saving it for the next generation.
Very good. So she's got a vision for the future, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. And committed to that. Well, yes, two from this table.
My favorite leader is Thomas Sankara.
Okay.
He's president of Burkina Faso.
Yes.
How to say, his skill and attributes. I think his vision for his country and his selfless, courageous.
Yeah, you notice some things keep coming up. Selfless, courageous, dedicated. There are some things I'm expecting to hear that I haven't heard yet, but we'll get to it. And if you don't tell me, I will tell you. Yes, next.
All right. I chose former President Goodluck Jonathan of Nigeria. It's one thing that is very clear about him. He's very tolerant to criticism, and I mean, it's a very good character that a leader should exhibit. And he wasn't power tested. He was able to relinquish power when he's kind of inspired and he will win an election. And he listens to his followers and advisors. We used to make a joke of him then that whenever there is an issue in the country, he sets up a committee. That's his first response to everything. So he always wants to seek people's opinion before he does anything.
Yeah. As a leader, you must also know, I mean, there's a place and time for committees. Some people have said that forming committees is just a way of avoiding decision making. I don't know about this case, but as a leader, there are also times that you need to consult because other people may have the information that you don't have. And so consulting them allows you to make a better decision. So there's a place and time for that, right? Next, one more.
The leader I chose is Dr. Chukwu. He's a medical coordinator at JLR in Nigeria. I chose him because he has very good communication skills.
Mm-hmm.
He has integrity, he delegates functions, and he has respect for others and carries his subordinates along. While he communicates very well with those above him. And he encourages innovation, innovative ideas. And I think these skills can be learned actually. And they make a very good leader.
Yeah, that was my next question. Of the skills you identified, I can't come around and see everybody's, but can the majority be learned? Yes. What percentage of the skills you identify can be learned? 75? 75? How about this? 80, 95. So we're between 70 and 95, right? And if I'm really, really bold, I'll say probably all of them. Right. Okay. So from this short exercise we've done, and I hope those at home actually do it longer and spend some time thinking about it, right? We've identified some essential traits, skills, and attributes about our future leaders. This possibly is universal, because I heard things here that I heard over there and a bit over there. She said integrity. I don't know if I heard it here, but I assume you guys just assumed it was there, right? I didn't hear communication skills. I mean, those, they have to be there. Yes, yeah. I've always maintained that the quickest, the fastest way to kill a leader's leadership, his ability to lead, is to impugn his integrity. And that's why African politicians do this very well. It's not just African, they do this in the West too, right? They show a picture of somebody, maybe a house somewhere in the UK, and they say belongs to this politician. By the time he has a chance to deny it, the story is spread. Everybody thinks the man is stealing money or whatever, and it's too late. That's a subtle way of attacking a person's leadership acceptance levels. Of the attributes and skills you identified, I would say yes, they are universal. However, you also told me which ones can be learned and which ones cannot be learned, right? Which is a very good thing, and I like this exercise for that. What this should tell you is that a lot of leadership can be learned. And that's, again, a fundamental question about leaders. In the olden days, there used to be a belief that leaders were born. So if somebody was born into a certain family or a certain profession, the assumption was that individual, this guy's going to be a leader, or this lady is going to be, well, very often women were not leaders anyway. But now we know better. Women have the same traits, attributes, and skills that we've said these men have, and therefore women can also be leaders. And some of them are pretty good leaders. Again, okay, let me repeat this. Many aspects of leadership can be learned. Leaders have different traits, skills, and competencies that they call upon when required. Do you understand what I mean by that? A very good example of this, remember this from this time going forward. Leaders carry a tool bag. In that tool bag, they have different tools. Those tools are these attributes, skills, competencies, and what have you. And leaders call upon them when required. Some are used more than others. So for instance, if you work in, if you have a big group, you run an organization, you communicate a lot. And you have to be a good communicator. You cannot be a leader without being a good communicator, right? So for instance, I have known leaders who were naturally stammerers. They stammered. And the good ones, what they did was they learned how to overcome the stammer. And you know some stammerers, I've known some in the workplace. At work, they're perfect Mr. Speaker. But you meet them on a weekend at home and they're stammering, right? So they found a way to overcome that because it's a way to communicate to people in order to be able to influence them. And this is where the definition of leadership comes in very handy. Leadership simply is an influence process. Your ability to influence others to see and accept your perspective of where the group or organization needs to go and be willing to follow you to go there, right? The bad leaders do it by force, and they'll threaten. It's called coercion. They'll coerce you, they'll threaten this and that, and people just are quiet. Not that they're willingly going with them, but the good leaders actually use what we call other influence tactics, including the ability to actually communicate things, right? Obama was one such example when he campaigned. I remember one news person said, when I listen to Obama speak, I feel chills down my leg. And this was a man. I don't know, did you hear that? You did it, yeah. Obama was a great speaker. There's also another speaker who I like, and I think I told you guys, Deval Patrick is the governor of Massachusetts. He's also a very, very good speaker. He can actually paint scenes with words. Yes. So as a leader, one of your key things to note and to follow at this stage in your careers is to start building your toolbox, right? I would like to ask you the question, what is in your toolbox? If you think you're a leader. I know you're leaders, but if you think you're leaders, what is in your toolbox? Are you good communicators? Next time, I'm asking a pointed question. Are you good communicators? Yes. Good. So that's in my toolbox. If you're not, polish it up. How do you polish up your communication skills? Every chance you get, you speak. So if somebody is looking for someone to speak to a group of young people, or single mothers or single fathers, volunteer to go be the one to go speak. Right? There's a book called The Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. Have you read it? Yeah. Well, it talks about a lot of other things, but it's quite applicable here. Anything that you want to get good at, you need to practice, practice, practice. Right? And there's nothing better than getting a free audience to practice your public speaking on. So when you do your social activities, your civil organizational activities, you go into churches and mosques and other community events, they're looking for someone to prepare a speech. It's work. But leaders are never afraid of work. Be the one to volunteer. I will do it now, deliver that speech. And even if you're nervous, it's okay. After maybe 10 speeches, that goes away. It becomes a bit easier, right? Are you able to negotiate? These are all leadership things. If you're weak, practice. Do you have good interpersonal skills? Can you go to a meeting and walk up to somebody? We're going to test you on this. Can you go to a meeting and just walk up to somebody and start a conversation? These are leadership skills. Oh, leaders do it so well. You think you've known them for many, many years, right? And they never forget names either. So these are skills that you need to learn. Research has shown this to be traits that leaders have in order to be effective. They have high energy level and they tolerate stress. When everything is burning down and people are screaming, things are going haywire, the leader is the one that says, chill. Come on, guys. We've seen this before. We can fix it. Joe, can you get this? Chidi, can you get that? I want to use some of the, whatever name. Kweku, can you get that? African names. Ture, can you get that? Right? That's what leaders do. When everybody is losing their heads, leaders are calm. And they bring everybody back. They can tolerate stress. They have self-confidence. That goes without saying. Of the leaders you picked, can you name one who doesn't have self-confidence? Again, as I said earlier, it's going to be very difficult if you want to be a leader and you're not very confident. Whatever area that you're not confident in, work on it. That's what leaders, nobody was born a good public speaker. Some people have deep voices, others don't, but you can practice to get better. Remember that. Leaders have what we call internal locus of control. Incidentally, this is something I don't see too much with us as Africans, right? Something goes wrong and we give it to God. Something doesn't work, we look for foreigners to come and build it for us. We don't think we can do it ourselves, right? We don't have that confidence in us. We're always looking externally for help. You need to develop that. And that, again, comes with confidence. Leaders are emotionally stable, and they also have what we call emotional stability. Many, many years ago, before women came into leadership positions, and even the workforce, you know the charge that people used to use against them? The reason why women were kept out of the workforce? They said they are too emotional, they cry too easily, right? But now men too cry, and there's nothing wrong with it. Obama cried, and his votes actually went up. So don't worry about it. Show your humanity when there's a need for that. It's okay to be emotional. Anyway, emotional stability, I don't think I explained it. is the ability to act right under different emotional circumstances. And emotional maturity is also the ability to produce the right response in all kinds of varying emotional conditions. You know, when you're a leader, somebody will deliberately provoke you. I've known this to be true. They'll come up, maybe your manager is there, they'll come up, hey, you, what's wrong with you? And if you're stupid, hey, you, and they know, this guy is not very mature. But if you're mature, you go, Joe, what's that about? Oh, okay, see me later, we can talk about it. You just find a way to dismiss it, right? That's what leaders do. They always act the right way under varying circumstances. You cannot say, I don't like power, or I don't need power. It's not just that you're deceiving yourself. If it's true that you don't, then you're not a leader. You need to have that, because leadership comes with power. The problem is when that power is misused. If you have a need for power to do the right thing, to help others, to behave ethically, then there's nothing wrong with it. Right? If you want to help a village, a community with clean water or maybe hospitals or whatever, you can't do it without the power. You need the power. So when it's offered to you, take it. Leaders have personal integrity. We talked about that earlier, right? I don't need to spend too much time on that. Leaders have achievement orientation. Achievement orientation is the desire to see things finished, accomplished. So if we're building a bridge, a good leader wants to see that bridge built. And therefore, they will do what? Remove all obstacles to make sure that we finish that bridge, especially on time and on cost, at good quality. Right? Would you say we have that? Yes. In Ghana and Nigeria and the rest of Africa, do we have that? Well, that's why I'm talking about this. For you guys to start thinking that way. Right? Because if you're going to be the guy that says, just do a bridge, give me 10%, I don't care the quality, well, this continent is not going anywhere. Leaders have also a need for affiliation. Need for affiliation is a sense of belongingness. Nobody wants to be alone. Loneliness is very painful. So leaders want to belong to a group or whatever, right? These are skills that you must have for effective leadership. You must have what we call technical skills. And I think I talked about this earlier. Somebody was talking about their boss knowing everything about how to do training for social services. Yes. And remember I said, okay, so she has good technical skills. Technical skills in this case is a good understanding of the job, what needs to be done. It doesn't mean that you're an engineer, but it's technical skills. So whatever it is that you do, technical skills involve the processes for doing that job. Right? And I'll come back to it. And then we also have interpersonal skills, the ability to deal with people without creating bad feelings necessarily. Although sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to discipline somebody. But in order to work together, you have to sort of fix that. And then you also have to have conceptual skills. Again, somebody mentioned their boss is capable of deep thinking and solving problems. Yes, that's what good leaders do, especially as you move higher up in the leadership ranking. There's a new addition now to the leadership skills. It's called strategic management skills. I didn't add that because it encompasses most of these things here. Strategic management is basically managing the organization for its long-term viability. So you're making decisions today to ensure that the organization is around 5, 10 years from now and doing well. And also doing well against its competition. I mean, it's the only way you're going to survive 10 years. If your competition is too much better than you, likely you're going to go under. You're going to fail. Imagine 2 hotels standing side by side, and one is exceptional. When you go in, they give you excellent service. Then the one is here every time they have water leaking into the rooms, and their rates are too high. or even comparable to? Which one would you go to? Yeah. So over time, the Good Services Hotel being more strategic and being better managed will survive, and this one will not. I put this chart in to show what happens as you progress through the leadership ranks. So this is the magnitude of skill required, and then this is the leadership experience level. I don't want to offend anybody here, but judging by your age, you're mostly on this scale here, you're probably somewhere here. You're just beginning your leadership journey. Do you agree with me? Yes. Okay. So that's where you are. At this stage, of these three skills, which one do you need the most of, relatively speaking? Pardon me? No. Exactly. When you're so new in your leadership ranks, the thing you need the most is the technical skills, right? This is the skill that gets you your first recognition as a supervisor. When you belong in an organization, the first promotion you get is either supervisor or floor manager or something like that, right? I think it's probably the same in the hospital as well. You're called, pardon me?
As a health officer, first of all.
Yes, right.
Technical skills start going on.
Exactly. So at that level, your skills are mostly looking after people and how they interact with the patient. Nobody's going to give you a budget and say, plan the budget for the next 5 years. No. Or should we buy an MRI now or buy it 2 years down? Nobody's going to give you that. It's how the patient is doing. So basically, you're still doing the technical work, but you're a leader. So that's where you are. That's where you are. The mistake a lot of people make, though, is they get there and they don't train anyone to take over from them, right? So they maintain this and they maintain it. Eventually, you stop moving along because if they promote you to the next level, who's going to take over from you? So you stay there. I had a friend who had that experience. I actually saw it happen. This guy was very, very good. He was a good, on an airplane, the most critical part is the wings. Anybody tells you I design airplane wings, you know they're very smart because it's the most complex part, right? And this guy was exceptional. We call them aerodynamicist. He was very good at doing that. So they made him director. And now he had to travel all over North America to witness flight testing and all of that. And then sometimes somebody will bring him a problem to do with the tires on an airplane. To him, tire. I want wings. Why are you giving me tires, right? Mentally. And then the worst part was when somebody brought him an issue involving the wings, this guy would start redesigning the whole thing. Instead of being the leader and helping the person, for the person to solve the problem, he would take it up and be solving the problem. Right? And as a leader, if you're doing somebody's work, who's doing your work? Exactly. So eventually he was fired. He was a brilliant guy. But I don't blame him for what happened. I blame whoever promoted him. Because he had no need for power. He just wanted to do his wings. He was a brilliant guy. But they made a mistake and tried to raise him in leadership. So you need to be aware of these things. And then when he got there, he should have given up the technical thing. He didn't. Anyway, as you move up in leadership, your technical skills are supposed to decline. Sometimes you deliberately forget. You also train other people to take over your technical skills. If somebody suddenly, I don't want to use hospitals all the time because you guys may not relate to it. If somebody put you in charge of this place as a hotel, let's pretend it's a hotel. Why do you want to know how the dishwasher really works, the details of it? You should know that we have a dishwasher and that the dishes should be clean. If you go and stand there with your sleeves rolled and you're operating the dishwasher, give me some soap. There's something wrong with that, right? You're becoming too technical. You need to move away from that. Anyway, And then as you move up, what area should you be developing? Yes, interpersonal, you notice, is always required because you have to deal with your subordinates, you have to deal with your higher bosses, you have to deal with your lateral co-workers. So interpersonal is always handy. And by the way, it's a skill that you must not, under any circumstance, underestimate. It will get you, to take you places. Sometimes, I'll get you, sometimes somebody even annoys you, but you know where you want to get to, so you sort of brush it aside. You can deal with it later. But the idiot leader, as soon as they get annoyed, they'll react right away, and everything else stops. Right? You have to be able to say, you know, so you do your thing, then you come back the next day, Joe, you know what happened yesterday? Can we try not to have that happen again? It doesn't help anybody. That's good interpersonal skills. You kept your mind on the end goal, and you still dealt with the problem. You didn't stop progress to deal with the problem, which a lot of people do. Yes, you have a question?
Yes, you gave an example about the hotel scenario just now. Most of the time, we've learned that a leader should lead by example.
Yes.
Yes, so can you please clarify that for me? Because what you just explained, I was thinking it's a leader.
Oh, the dishwasher? Oh, no. When we say a leader should lead by example, that's not what we mean. Otherwise, the leader will be with dishes today, floor tomorrow, cooking the next day. What else? Cutting the lawn? No. When we say leader must lead, we call it walk. A leader must walk the talk. In other words, when a leader says, I will review your file tomorrow, and by next week I should have a decision on whether you earn a promotion or not, the leader should do it because you're expecting it. Leader must have, when they say something, they must do it. So we call it leader must walk the talk. They're leading by actually setting the example. And also when a leader says, well, from here on I want all employees to be ethical in their behaviors, coming to work on time, putting your fair days, work 8 hours, and when you're leaving, let your boss know. What if every day you see the leader come in at 12 and leave at 2? He's not leading by example. That's what we mean. It's integrity. It's got nothing to do about doing other people's work. Yeah.
I have a question about this, Chad.
Right.
About the technical skills declining with time.
Mhm.
Apart from you deliberately forgetting or, like you mentioned,
Mhm.
what are the other things that will cause a leader to decline by way of their technical skills?
The same book that I mentioned will tell you that. With time, if you don't do something, you tend to forget it. In addition, we live in a world today where technology is big, right? Yesterday's dishwasher is very different from today's dishwasher. Even if you have a phone, look at your phone from 5 years ago and today's phone, right? They're very, very different beasts. If somebody hasn't had a phone for 5 years, suddenly you give them this, they'll be lost. You see what I'm saying? So because of technological changes, as well as the lack of practice, they're going to forget the technical skills. And a young person will come out of university or maybe sometimes even high school and be able to do the thing that took the leader many, many months to do. They'll do it in 3 days because they're using even modern technology to do it. Did I answer your question? Yes, next.
I also think that in your leadership work, I believe that the reason why the skills usually is decline in your ability to lead is because of the level of leadership you have, at the level where you have reached. Because what I noticed in most of the time is that if you, for example, you are a project manager,
yes,
you are used to developing a project, doing all the analysis, and you have a co-worker who you try to train to do that particular work. So over the period of time, as a person gets used to developing a proposal, managing a project, definitely your mindset as a leader now will be about how can you mentor someone else in different areas because you already have someone doing that. So over the period of time, you find out that you have a whole full of things that are ready, that are project managers and that can manage in a project. But now the role that you assume will not be proposal writing now. It will be more about reviewing,
Of course,
looking
of
at
course.
it, and that way your level of maturity and leadership goes up gradually.
Anyway, he didn't allow me to speak about. Did I do conceptual? Did I do interpersonal? It's a must. You must start developing it. We all have it by different levels. Always take yours higher. The ability to walk into a room and just talk to people. The ability to relate to people in the workplace and get along with them. If you're a leader, you must have that in bundles, interpersonal, right? Some people have the natural ability when they walk in the room, you notice them. You want to be with them. You want to be around them. Those people that are smart have an easier path to leadership because they have one of their requirements already in the bag. And then we have conceptual skills. Conceptual skills is the ability to think and to solve difficult problems relating to the organization's needs, right? This is what top leaders do. When you go to Microsoft, the head probably cannot even use a laptop, but they can solve, I'm only exaggerating, but the head can solve problems, right? Conceptually, the head is adept at solving big problems that come up with the organization, but they don't need to be the one writing the code. Laptop, I'm sure they could use, but writing code is not a requirement, right? So that's conceptual skills. So what I've just shown is leadership experience level here, how long you've been a leader, and the magnitude of the skills of each one of these skills that you need to have, or at least exhibit more in your work, right? Your day-to-day work. These are relevant competencies. I believe we talked about them already. You must have emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, again, is the ability to remain calm under all kinds of circumstances and then act appropriately. Social intelligence, your ability to fit in socially, right? In all kinds of situations, dining, if every time you go to cut meat is flying off and staining somebody's shirt, you'll never be invited to dinner again. And most business is done at the dinner table. Did you guys know that? Yes. So these are things you need to learn, right? Absorptive capacity, that's your ability to learn. People don't like repeating things. So if you're an engineer and somebody shows you, oh, Victor, come here, let me show you this. Okay, this is the new one. It's got 3 USB ports. It also has HDMI and this, and that. I may just, if I'm going to ask a question, I have to ask it intelligently. Oh, how many HDMI ports did you say it had? Okay, 1. I see that. But if I went and said, what's an HDMI port? Right away they say, oh, this guy doesn't really belong here. Doesn't even know what HDMI is. You see my point? So you need to show a bit of absorptive capacity, the ability to learn quickly. How do we accept when a person is effective as a leader? There are quite a few ways we do it frequently. And by the way, this can get you into many, many arguments. We've seen that. I mean, you've seen that in African politics, right? Where one man is somebody's highest devil, and on the other hand is somebody else's biggest angel, because he's saving the country or the world, right? So we all assess these things differently. Anyway, so these are some of the frequently used measures. We look at improved or high group performance that the individual is leading. So if somebody is leading a bank and the bank's profit is going up year after year, the group is performing better, so that person is assumed to be a good leader. Follower satisfaction or willingness to follow, right? If the people that follow you are willing to follow you and they're satisfied, you assume to be a good leader. Imagine the coach of the Super Eagles or the Black Stars, right? If the players are happy playing under you and they're winning all their games, you can demand almost anything you want and the government will pay you. But if every time you look, one player is threatening not to show up for training camp, And every time you go to a tournament, you're losing, right? You're judged to be not effective as a leader. Also, sometimes we use career success of the leader. I haven't seen this too much here, but in the West, we talk about something called career progression. In other words, the person was a supervisor for 2 years. After 2 years, they became manager. After 2 years, they became director. Sometimes we even call them high-performing employees. They call them hippos, or is it hippos? High-performing employees. And they mark you, so they give you special training. In other words, you possess special skills that, if properly harnessed, can really help the organization. When you manage people, there are many ways of doing it, but we've tried to simplify it in a way that you can remember from here. So as a leader, you can either be what we call task-oriented or relations-oriented, right? Task-oriented behavior is aimed at accomplishing tasks efficiently. That's what they look at. Let's be efficient. Let's get this done. Boom, boom, boom. And a relationship-oriented is aimed at increasing mutual trust and building up the relationship, right? Task behaviors include planning, clarifying, monitoring. Relations include supporting, developing, and recognizing, say, good work. When people do good work, do you give them rewards? Do you say thank you to them? Or do you just say, yeah, pick up the other one and finish it? Yes.
So please, I want to take you back a little. You said to measure a leader's effectiveness, you look at if the followers are satisfied enough.
Or willing to follow them.
So in a scenario where the leader have a vision for something which is really going to work, and the followers do not think that process is going to work, and they are not following that,
Yes.
does it mean he has failed?
To some level, yes. I hope that doesn't surprise you. Why is that? Leaders have toolboxes. One of the things you have in your toolbox is communication. And if as a leader you cannot communicate your vision to your group, unless if you can accomplish that vision alone, you're going to fail. So if you have a vision, no matter how good the vision is, if you're unable to bring people along with you to get it done, that's a failure, right? So the minute you have that vision, and you notice your people are not with you, go in the toolbox, pick up the communication tool, and start using it. Flood the place with communication. Let people understand why the vision can benefit everyone, can benefit the organization. I don't see too many leaders doing that around here, unfortunately. They only do it around election time. I mean, political leaders, right? But in reality, as a leader, you should be communicating so people understand you and they understand your decision making. When you go in some determined organizations, some strong organizations, there are slogans on the wall. That's a form of communication. So they'll say things like, at ABC Company, our customers are number one assets. At ABC Company, quality is important to us. They are communicating what's important to the organization through these posters. So if you can't get these out and get the followers to line up behind you, what are you? You're not a leader. By the way, can you be a leader without followers?
Sometimes there are some words people usually use, and it's like be tactical. So you have to be tactical how you deal with their life. You recognize them internally that they are doing well, and you try to satisfy them, but you don't show it too much like they are actually doing well, so that they don't pass mark and they don't go to the extreme. That's why unless someone told me. And I've tried, I think it's been working.
The thing about leadership, and I'm glad you brought this up. Leadership is not a case where you do one thing, then go to sleep. You have to do one thing, monitor, then do two, monitor, then do three. Because if it's very important and if it's entrenched, what effectively you're trying to do is to make change. And we all know change is difficult, right? So recognizing is one, but you also have a performance measuring assessment in the organization. So you also use that to put people in line. So one of the questions you ask is employee punctual? And then if you have examples, you bring it out. You have to have a toolkit.
Sir,
Yes.
I want to make a contribution to what he said.
Yes.
I used to work with this boss. He has dual character, or probably he does it intentionally. If you do the right thing, he will praise you openly, and if you do the wrong thing, you see the opposite of you still openly. So, I mean, and he's always very lavish with his praises, and he gives people like me. I know when I used to work with him, I always wanted to do the right thing because the way he praise you when you're done doing it makes you feel very good. But then when you make the mistake of doing something that you're not supposed to do, he's also going to give you the opposite feeling. So he'll give you the opposite feeling. So we always knew that, I mean, he recognizes you when you do the right thing, and then you also are very careful not to do the wrong thing because he reacts.
By the way, you know there's differences between managers and leaders, right? So a person can be a manager, which is what you're describing, but not a good leader. A leader is the one that people are willing to follow and is effective, they get things done, right? Manager's sole concern is really efficiency. As a leader, can you only be task-oriented? Only do task-oriented behaviors? Why not? Why not?
Because at times, like you said, with the interpersonal skills, you need to relate well with your people. If every time all you care about is work, people get tired with you. But when you show little compassions like, how are you, how was your night yesterday, how are your kids or something, you relate with them at that personal level. It encourages them to it because they think that you care about them.
Yes.
So at the long run, they also care about what you want them to do and they do it effectively.
Exactly. Okay, second question.
I just want to answer with that. I want to use myself as a typical example. Like some time ago in my organization, I had some subordinates that were working with me because I'm like a task-oriented person. So I just say, please get it done. Please, I want it on my table. Please, I need it. And at a point, I just felt like they were just being rebellious and doing like giving attitude. So, but later on, we employed some other people, and I took my time to say, how was your day? How was your day? And I saw that those people were actually like following me really.
Exactly. Exactly. Sure.
In the midst of the clamor for democracy and then consultation, is there room for leader to have some degree of autocracy in his leadership?
Yeah. There are times when you need to be autocratic. Look, when you run an organization and you have to make a decision, you're the only one who understands the issues. You have all the answers you need to make a decision. Why do you need to consult anybody? It's a waste of time. We have a thing called situational leadership, and it talks about that. On one spectrum, you have autocracy, autocratic leadership, and then on the other, you have delegated, right? It all depends on the circumstances, the situation. Who has the necessary information to make the right decision? So yes, there are times when you have to be autocratic, but hopefully that's not every time. That's a problem when somebody's doing that all the time. Anyway, is it also okay to be relationship-oriented all the time? No. What happens in that instance? And no work gets done. Because the workplace is like one big party. Yes, yes. So what we have, when you consider these, is as leaders, as young leaders, you need to be focused on both, right? And when you focus on both, we don't need you to go half and half. This is one situation where compromise doesn't work. You need to go high on task and high on relations. So we call it the high leader. Right? And this is the only time I'm going to talk to you about research and theory, because it just takes you so far from getting the knowledge that you need to actually do the work. It's a study by a couple, Blake and Mouton, and they call it high leadership. Have you heard of it? Okay. And that is exactly where you want to be, where you are today. So in your day-to-day activities as leaders, like you did, and I applaud you for that, practice that. Keep that in mind. You don't always have to demand completion date. Completion date, completion date. Occasionally, I like that top. That's a very nice top. Oh, you were late because your son was sick or your daughter was sick? Oh, sorry to hear that. Then the next day you come back and how's your son today or your daughter today? Right? That's relationship. You're building trust with employees. And like you found out through your experimentation, you go a very long way when you can do high task and high relationship as leaders of others. Okay? So thank you very much. I hope this has been useful. You've learned from this enough to go and be able to apply it. There's a lot of theory behind what we have here, but there's no need for us to go into theory. Basically, I've summed up the things that I believe you need to know to be effective leaders when you guys go back to your organizations and your communities. Okay? Any questions before we close? Yes.
Doctor, I have a concern. I know for a fact, or we know for a fact that when you're a leader, you need to keep your followers very subordinated, motivated. But how do you, as a leader, then maintain your own motivation? How do you stay motivated?
Well, first of all, that's a very good question. I mean, it can be demotivating when you're trying to sort of train somebody or direct somebody and it's not working. But we look at the attributes of leaders, right? And in there, we have persistence. Leaders don't give up. The other thing that you hardly ever find from research is leaders are very often passionate about what they do. When you're passionate, no mountain is too high. Right? So a combination of at least those two will, I believe, see you through these challenges that we all face. And the other thing, I want to end by also saying that leadership is challenging, it's hard, but it can be rewarding because you can actually make a change, improve something, especially for those of you in civil society management. Your rewards come in bundles. Entrepreneurs, they get rewarded in money and all of that, but yours comes in actually making a change in the lives of people. Yes?
Thank you very much, Doctor, because I have this scenario. Just tell me sincerely, because that's what I'm practicing, to see whether it's a leadership style, right? Okay, I have this group of people that every time for the past 2 years, the vision has been going, they've been following it, they are volunteers, and they just stop. At any point in time, there's no money, there will be regulars, I'm sorry to say, they will not come on time, they're not just punctual. So I adapted a measure to say, look, I have to be very straightforward on this. If you actually came to support this initiative, you came to support it. So if you think that, usually that's why I tell them at the welcome speech, if you believe that you cannot make it, it's time to say it. Because if we identify that you cannot perform, we try to support you, there's a room for you to leave. So I've been doing that. I did it with the first batch, everyone left. And the reason why they left was some of them couldn't cope with it and stuff. So the second batch, everybody left too. So I sat for long and said, okay. So the third batch, when they came, and almost everyone left, but I got one person that stayed. And the person that stayed, actually, when you really caught him, you see the blood of the organization, because he's even more passionate than me. So like now I'm not there, he's running a lot of things, calling me. So I'm now thinking, well, that was a good approach. And because of that, other people that are old now, they are passionate, they are doing things, and I see things working. So they know definitely that we're not here for the joke. So I want to know whether that is a good practice or there's another method that we not know. So actually, that's what
One of the, is there anybody here who's in human resources? You are? Okay. I think it's one of the most underestimated functions in any organization. Why do I say that? I think your case illustrates what I'm about to say. The employees or the people you bring into the organization, how you select them is very important, right? Based on what you're telling me, I don't know all the facts, but it sounds to me like you found the right people or person eventually for your organization, and that guy has passion for what you do. So they will stay regardless what, right? The people you had, they probably saw your organization as a 9 to 5 transactional activity. I give my labor, I get cash, right? So what I'm trying to say is, for any organization, make sure you are employing the right people for that organization. Why would you employ somebody who doesn't like kids to work in a primary school or nursery? It doesn't make sense. And that is why I think the human resource function in many organizations is either underutilized or undervalued. Their value is not fully realized. If you are able to, for any organization, select the right people. I know people, incidentally, who will work in aviation for free. I know people that like to live next to an airport, and you know what they like the most? When airplanes start, before they take off, the exhaust is full of, it's like kerosene. You know that, right? Airplane fuel is kerosene. It's not, car fuel is stronger than airplane fuel. Or otherwise they'll be burning in the air. Yeah, otherwise they'll be burning in the air. And there are people who, when they wake up and they can smell that kerosene, go, oh God. They go, oh God, I like the smell of jet fuel in the morning. They love it so much that if you give them a job, even if you pay them 1 CD a day, they'll do it because of that love, that passion for aviation. For any activity, for any organization, make sure you bring on board the right people.
Sir, you made mention that one of the precautions that leaders should take is to not forget people's names. And unfortunately, I happen to have that problem because so basically my question is, how do I take care of it?
Can I answer that question?
Sure.
I was very actively involved in politics when I was in school politics. And
APC or the other one?
No, student University of Nigeria Medical Association.
No, but they're normally linked to.
No, we're not linked anymore.
Okay.
Yeah. The thing now was this: the first time I ran, I was in first year. I actually lost, and the issue was she doesn't know people. She's always on her own. She's snobbish and the rest. So I learned to know people's names, and I never forget. I knew every single person in my class. And then it made them feel good because it's like she really has an interest for her to even remember my name. You understand? And so with that, I may not know much about you, but once I call them by their names, they just smile.
Yeah.
So you just connect automatically with them. And since then, I never saw an election after that.
Yeah. No, that's exactly the point. By the way, there are ways of remembering people's names. I'm probably a bit like you, maybe a bit better, but then I meet a lot of people, right? I don't remember all names, but if you really, really want to, and if you're in a leadership position wanting to move up, and there are a lot of people below you, you have to make it a point to remember their names. Like she said, when you call people by the name, it gives, even, I think was it a few days ago, one of the participants approached me. And before she came to see me, somebody had told me, this person will come to see you. So I knew the name. So when they came, I mentioned the name. I said, oh my God, you know my name? Right? She was very happy. And it made the conversation very easy to have. People feel good when you know their names. So there are ways around it. One of the ways, go to YouTube, find out. One of the ways is to associate that person with somebody you know already who has the same name. Either they are similar or they're different, things like that. But there are ways to get around this. Yeah, I've never known a good politician, a good one, Who doesn't know people's names? And they even know their kids' names. Yeah. So remember that. Yes.
So I remember you mentioned earlier on that a leader should not be, a manager of a hotel should not be seen at the dishwashing machine. So I have a challenge. I'm at a workplace where my subordinate, a messenger, is tasked to be sending letters out. And he's not always at the office, so when letters have to go, I feel like it has to go, so I take it. And then when there are times I'm not in and I say, I need you to do this for me, he's like, no. And I kind of feel that, is it wrong for me to do his task? So can I also say that, okay, fine, since you're not doing mine, when the letters go, you're not in, they'll sit at your table and wait till you come?
I think you should for a different reason. It's not leadership. For the simple reason that if you're doing his job, who's doing yours?
I come back to do mine.
Oh, wow, you must be stressed. Or maybe one of you is not needed. Maybe one of you is not needed, right? What I said was you need to be careful with it. If you have the technical skill, like the guy doing the dishwashing, it's probably okay to go in there once and say, by the way, this is where the soap goes and this is where the water blocks. Remove this filter, clean it, and put it back, and go. But I wrote a case study the other day. I'll tell you guys about it. But you don't want to be the one that every time there's dishes to be done, hey, I'll be there. Just hold it. You understand what I'm saying? You're happy because you're going to be washing the dishes. It doesn't jive. Yours is to be the leader. Let the dishwashers wash the dishes. If you are celebrating because you're going to be doing dishes, maybe you should stay there and be the dishwasher. Yeah. I wrote a case study, and this was imaginary. I put a guy who had worked in a factory, mattress factory, and he rose through the ranks. He never went to university. He was so good at fixing the machines that they made him first-line supervisor. He was also very good at that, right? Then they made him plant manager because he knew how to operate every machine in the plant and fix every machine in the plant. And this guy, very often, there was one particular machine that was a bit complex. So whenever that machine would break down, this guy would roll up his sleeves, white shirt or blue shirt, and you come and he's there with a mechanic, give me that wrench, give me this, and that, right? As a plant manager, seriously, if you're doing that, what's happening to your thing? And it also points to a failure in leadership, in that he has not seen fit to train somebody to be able to fix that machine because he enjoys fixing that machine himself. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Right. You need to detach yourself. A leader's job is not.
Okay, so with what you are saying, don't you have a leader who is a leader and a manager as well, having the two together?
Yes, you can. You can. But a lot of times when you're performing a function, if you told me the function, I could tell you if it's a manager's function or a leader's function that he's performing or she's performing. Sometimes they're doing both simultaneously. Leaders tend to have a long-term vision. Managers have efficiency in mind. How quickly, how can we meet the time limit? How can we meet the cost limit? That sort of thing. All right? In addition, manager is a line on the organization chart. Leader is not. We always associate sort of leader with the manager. Sometimes it's not. The play we saw, right? Remember the formal leader and informal? So the manager, if he's a bad leader, could be the formal leader, but there's really an informal leader somewhere in the organization that actually runs the show. So that's possible.
Yes, I want to ask a question. So, Pastor, when I came to the yearly program, I realized that much of leadership can be learned.
You know?
I realized that much of leadership can be learned, something that is taught. Because in my own little head, I was just thinking that, oh my God, I was born a leader. Just because I naturally have the power to convince people to follow something I believe in. So with my friends, if it's something bad and I tell them about it, they follow it. So I just decided to put all of that energy towards promoting girls' education because that's what I'm passionate about. So, but you were talking about consultation. Now I see a lot of young people coming up, they want to lead, but they don't have people they
Mentorship is about growth as a leader. It's not necessarily about effectivity today as a leader. So they're different things. If you want to grow as a leader and do bigger things, like yourself, girls' education, right now you probably have a small charity, right? But as it gets bigger, the issues become more complex. You're going to see issues that you haven't seen before. If you have a mentor, it's easier because they've likely gone through that and they can guide you before you even get there. You see my point? But if you just want to be where you are today, happy, I don't know how many girls you're looking after, then it becomes, you probably don't necessarily need a mentor. But having said that, I encourage everybody in this room, everybody on Yali, to have a mentor. Even when you become a CEO of an organization, it's good to have a mentor. If nothing else, you have one? Okay. Oh, you mentor people? Yeah. Good. No, that's what we're looking out for you guys to be receiving mentoring, but also be giving out mentoring. Both. Because the people you mentor, they are about to go through the things that you are going through. The other thing is with mentoring, I'm going a bit off topic. Is that okay? The other thing with mentoring is you don't want the gap between the mentor and the mentee to be too big. It usually doesn't work, right? And so for somebody, say, in senior high school, you finished university, right? Yes. First degree? Yes. Okay. You probably be an ideal mentor as opposed to giving them some CEO to mentor somebody in first year high school. Yeah, that's fine. I'm just affirming it, right? So the same individual can be receiving and giving. And that's what's good about mentoring and about the program, right? Because we encourage that. Pass it along. Pass on the knowledge and the experience to others. And then you also receive from those who have been to where you're now heading towards. Yeah. When it comes to leadership, I think what matters is the ability to, whatever you are, to have the skills I talked about. Interpersonal skills, as an example, the ability to be emotionally stable, whatever temperament you are. Yeah, I haven't really studied what effect each one of those will have. But all I can tell you is be emotionally stable, be confident. These are the attributes we look for. And you came up with them yourselves. If we had time, you would have seen more. And then eventually begin to see the attributes converge.